Good morning, everyone. I welcome you all for the fourth day of the course in physics for BSc first year. I am Professor Ms. Pranoti Ravindra Kaune, Assistant Professor in Physics at Mahatma Phule Arts and Science College, Patur, District Akola. So, in the last 3 days, we have discussed about classical mechanics. Second, we have discussed about properties of matter, and yesterday we have seen about wave optics. Okay, so let's move towards our next part, and it will be semiconductor electronics, materials, devices, and simple circuits. So what is the need of the electronics? See, it is called as physics and electronics. These both subjects goes with hand in hand. Few concepts of physics, or almost physics, is applied everywhere in electronics also. So or rather we can say the development of electronics needs the basic foundation of physics. That's why we are studying this paper in our bridge course also. So what are our objectives, or what we are going to study in today's topic or in today's lecture is, in this lecture we will discuss few concepts of semiconductor electronics, materials, devices, and simple circuits. Okay, so first we will see from where to start is classification of metals, non-metals, uh, conductors, and semiconductors. Then what are intrinsic semiconductor, what are extrinsic semiconductors, and many sub titles under these topics. Okay, so let's begin. So first of all, classification of metals, conductors, and semiconductors. See, on the basis of conductivity, the metals, conductors, and semiconductors are classified. Since our fifth standard or fourth standard, we have studied that metals are highly conductive. Okay, so see, conductivity and resistivity are inversely proportional. If we have high conductivity, then we'll have low resistivity, and if we have low conductivity, then we'll have high resistivity. Okay, so based on the values of resistivity and conductivity, we will first see metals. Metals have very low resistivity, and so they have very high conductivity. Then second number is semiconductor. Semiconductors resistivity or conductivity is intermediate to metals and insulators. Then insulators have high resistivity and very low conductivity. In short, what is conductivity or what is resistivity? Resistivity is resistance, its name itself suggests, and conductivity, that it can conduct electric current, or it can conduct maybe thermal conductivity is there. Okay, and resistivity is resistance to all this. Okay, then semiconductors. What are semiconductors? We have seen on the basis of conductivity, semiconductors have resistivity or conductivity intermediate to metals and insulators. Means they can act as metals as well as they can act as insulators. Okay, so semiconductors are mainly of two types. First, elemental semiconductors, for example silicon and germanium, and compound semiconductors, that is cadmium sulfide, gallium arsenide, then anthracene, dope phthalocyanines, then polypyrrole, polyaniline, polythenophene, etc. So in this module we will restrict ourselves to elementary semiconductors particularly. The general concept introduced here for discussing the elemental semiconductors by and large apply to most of the compound semiconductors as well. See, about the compound semiconductors, we are not going to study here. Our main purpose is to study the elemental semiconductors, and silicon and germanium are the best examples of elemental semiconductors. So once again we will see classification of metals, conductors and semiconductors. Metals have, we will talk about only one case in that scene. Metals have high conductivity, insulators have low conductivity, and semiconductors have intermediate conductivity. Same in case of resistivity, metals have very low resistivity, insulators have very high resistivity, and semiconductors have intermediate resistivity. I think it is clear now. Let's move. So on the basis of energy bands, the overlap of electronic orbitals of atoms with each other leads to continuous distribution of their energies in solids, giving rise to band formation. Once again we will see the line, the overlap of electronic orbitals of atoms, okay, with each other leads to continuous distribution of their energy in solids, giving rise to band formation. Thus, every atomic orbital of the solid becomes a part of some band inside the solid. The valence electrons of atoms from a band known as valence band of the solids. Then, by definition, we have valence band as being completely occupied at 0 Kelvin. The lowest unoccupied energy band is called conduction band. Okay, the relative position of valence band and conduction band varies for distinguishing metals, semiconductors and insulators. An electron in conduction band must be considered as free contributing to electrical conduction. Once again we will see those electronic orbits which are overlapping, they constitutes or they take part in the band formation. Okay, this every atomic orbital of solid becomes a part of some band inside the solid, means every atomic orbital is taking part in the band formation. The valence electrons lies in the valence band, and they are responsible for band formation, as we all know. Then what is valence band? Which is completely occupied at 0 degree Kelvin. Then the lowest unoccupied energy band is called conduction band, and the relative position of valence band and conduction band varies for distinguishing metals, semiconductors and insulators. Mean in metals there are different positions of valence band and conduction band. For semiconductor the positions are different, and for insulators the positions are again different. So an electron in conduction band must be considered as free contributing to electrical conduction. Okay. So here I have seen you the figure. I will enlarge it. Wait. Okay. So see, in the first figure there is small gap in the conduction band and valence band. Then in second figure they are overlapping. Then in third there is a large means in B case there is a large gap, and in C case there is a little or intermediate gap. Okay, so we will see first the case 1. Okay, so this refers to a situation as shown in part A of this figure. Metals from either when the conduction band is partially filled and the valence band is partially empty, or when conduction and valence band overlap. So in this figure I will again enlarge it. So in this figure, the first and second figure of part A, what it is showing? partially filled conduction band in first figure. Okay, partially filled conduction band and partially filled valence band, and in second figure both are overlap. Okay, so this is the case of metals. Here we have seen the position of valence band and conduction band as they are as if partially filled or they are overlapped. Okay, so metals from either when the conduction band is partially filled and the valence band is partially empty, or when the conduction and valence bands overlap. Then, when one has either of the above situations, an extremely small amount of energy is given to the sample and can easily excite large number of electrons into the unoccupied states. Hence, such materials easily conduct electricity and they are called as metals. The metals have high conductivity and low resistivity. Okay, we once again will see what it means. So in first case we have seen the positions of conduction band and valence band here. So if a very small amount of energy is applied to such metals or such we can say solids, then large number of electrons are available. And what electrons will do? If large number of electrons are available, then they will take part in conduction activity and they can easily conduct electricity, and those have high conductivity are called as metals. Okay, then we'll see the case second. So again I will go to this figure and see the B part in the figure. See, there is a large graph, that is Eg, it is shown Eg greater than 3 electron volt. Okay, so it is showing empty conduction band and fully filled valence band. Okay, so we will see. So in this case as shown in B, a large band gap Eg exists, that is Eg energy gap greater than 3 electron volt. The valence band is completely filled and the conduction band is completely empty. One has to supply energy of the order of 3 electron volt in order to excite an electron from the valence band to the conduction band in order to generate a free electron. Such a high value of energy cannot be supplied under ambient conditions. Hence, these materials do not conduct electricity and are called as insulators. A natural source of energy for causing excitation of the electron in solids is the atmospheric temperature, which can cause thermal excitation of the electrons. However, at practical temperatures, that is room temperature of about 300 degree Kelvin, the available energy to cause the thermal expansion is very less, that is nearly equal to 25 milli electron volt, and which is very small, that the energy graph. Okay, thus the thermal excitation is inadequate in causing electrical conduction in insulators. The insulators have low conductivity and high resistivity. Once again we will see what this whole paragraph is going to say or what it means. See, in the A figure you can see conduction band and valence band. Okay, so in the A figure what we are seeing, first part of A figure, that it is partially filled conduction band and partially empty valence band. So if we supply or some energy to it, then the electrons, what will they do? They will be available for the conduction. Large numbers of electrons will be available for the conduction as they got excited, and they will conduct the electricity. Okay, then in second figure also there is no energy gap. Okay, or in first figure the energy gap is very small, and in second figure energy gap, there is no energy gap. So there is overlapping of conduction band and valence band. Okay, then if we, in case that in this case also, if a small amount of energy is provided, then large number of electrons will be available for the conduction and thus the metals conduct. But in second figure or figure B, we can see See, there is large gap between valence band and conduction band. Here valence band is completely filled, but conduction band is completely empty. And there is a large energy gap between them, that is greater than 3 electron volt. But in practically, if at room temperature, suppose some thermal expansion happens in the metals and the electrons get excited, still the energy is not sufficient to bridge this gap of 3 electron volt. What amount of energy we can get from the thermal excitation is, it is almost 25 milli electron volt, and which is very less than the energy gap which is greater than 3 electron volt. Okay, so it is not possible in insulators to make available the conduction electrons, and thus insulators have very low conductivity and very high resistivity. I think it is clear now. Okay. Wait. Okay, so case third. In this situation shown in C, here finite but small band gap, that is energy gap less than 3 electron volt exists. Because of small band gap, the room at room temperature, some electrons from valence band can acquire enough energy to cross the energy gap and enter the conduction band. These electrons can move in conduction band and contribute to electrical conduction. Hence, the resistance of semiconductor is not as high as that of insulators, but also not as that of metals. Semiconductors sometimes demonstrate metallic-like behavior at high temperatures due to the existence of free electrons at high temperatures. Okay, we'll once again go to the figure. Sorry. Okay, so here now we are talking about the figure C. See here, here our valence band and conduction band is given, and there is a small gap among this small energy gap among this band, and which is less than 3 electron volt. So if a particular amount of energy is supplied to it for the excitation, then electrons can easily bridge this gap and move from valence band to conduction band. And electrons, if once move to the conduction band, then they will be available for conducting. So see, these semiconductors, they sometimes act as metals and sometimes acts as insulators. So if amount of energy is provided to them, they will there will be availability of conduction electrons, and at high temperatures there will be availability of large number of electrons to conduct the electricity. So at high temperatures they will behave as if metals. Okay, so I think this part is clear. On the basis of energy band gaps, we have bifurcated, or we have seen what are metals, what are semiconductors, and what are insulators. Okay, so we'll move to next. What are intrinsic semiconductor now? So common example of intrinsic semiconductors are elements silicon and germanium, which are 4 electrons in the outermost shell in 2s2p electronic configuration. Now see this figure. Okay, see this figure. See this atom. Okay, so in this atom, 4 bands are available, or 4 bonds are or that atom is ready to make the 4 bonds. Okay, so if we observe in figure that each atom is coordinated by 4 nearest neighbors forming covalent bonds with each other. Okay, in each covalent bond, a valence electron from one atom is shared with corresponding one of the neighboring atoms. Thus, 4 atoms will add 4 additional electrons to the valence shell of the central atom, completing its inert shell configuration. See, every atom will try to achieve the inertial configuration, okay, to be stable, in order to be stable. We have studied all these concepts in our 10th, 12th, not 12th, better in 10th only, okay. And what is covalent bond? It is dependent on sharing, that also we know. So these all four so each atom will form four covalent bond, and thus it will get add four electrons into its valence shell, and will try to achieve the nearest inert shell configuration, okay. So here in below there is schematic two dimensional presentation of silicon or germanium structure showing covalent bonds at low temperature. See, +4 is given everywhere, and this +4 indicates inner cores of silicon or germanium. Okay, now we will see what are extrinsic semiconductor. If you use the concept that foreign atoms added to intrinsic semiconductor in very small quantities, what kind of quantity it will be? It will be that much small, that is ppm, parts per million level, which would enhance their physical properties for technological exploitation. That is, one can enhance electrical conductivity manifold upon such impurity addition. Such material are known as extrinsic semiconductors, or also called as doped semiconductors. Okay. Since the semiconducting properties are primarily due to impurity atoms than from the parent compound itself, the impurity atoms added are technically called as dopants. See what we are doing? We are adding some atoms or dopants to our intrinsic semiconductor to enhance their properties. Okay, so an important consideration which must go into while choosing a dopant for doping is that size of the dopant atom should be close to the size of parent atom, okay, so as not to disturb the crystal lattice significantly. We have to take care that the dopant should be such kind that our symmetry should not get disturbed, okay. This will ensure that the dopant merely adds its promised physical properties to the parent compound without generating spurious features arising due to distortion of the lattice. Okay. So mainly two types of dopants are used in the doping: tetravalent silicon or germanium, pentavalent. Uh, so what will be the pentavalent, that is having valency 5. And which are those dopants? Arsenic, antimony, phosphorus, etc. And what are trivalent impurities? They are like indium, boron, aluminium, etc. So now we'll see N type of semiconductors. So N type means N is we can take it as granted for negative. Okay. So if we do pentavalent impurity, okay, arsenic, antimony, or phosphorus into silicon or germanium, then the four valence electrons we have seen in the last figures here, that they can share silicon or germanium's crystal. They can have four they can form four covalent bonds, okay. Now here we are adding, okay, here we are adding pentavalent impurity in like arsenic, antimony, and phosphorus into silicon or germanium. Then the four valence electron of the pentavalent atom will involve in the formation of four covalent bonds with its neighboring silicon or germanium atom, and the fifth valence electron of the dopant will find itself loosely attached to the parent nucleus. This is because the four covalent bonds will apparently complete the inertial configuration for the dopant atom, which will screen the positive nuclear charge from attracting the fifth valence electron, okay. Once their inertial configuration is achieved, then they will spread the positive charge and will have less attractivity for the fifth valence electron. Hence that electron will be very loosely bound to the dopant atom, and with very small amount of energy it will get excited to the conduction band. now what we have to do is, if it is loosely bounded to the nucleus, then we have to just provide a very small amount of energy to these for excitation of these electrons. They will get easily excited and will go to the conduction band and will contribute to the conduction. So this will enhance the conduction property of the silicon or germanium. Okay, so we will enlarge this figure. See here, all the four valences are satisfied, plus this fifth electron is available and it is loosely bounded to the uh, nucleus. Okay, so it will be helpful in enhancing the properties. Okay, in such semiconductors, now what will happen, there are as many electrons will be available, that will be easily, that will make the substance more conductive. Okay, so in such semiconductors, the number of free electrons is contributed largely by the number of dopant atoms and weakly by the intrinsically generated free electrons by thermal excitation. This, with proper level of doping, the number of conduction electrons can be made much larger than the number of holes. Hence, in an extrinsic semiconductor doped with pentavalent impurity, electron becomes the majority carriers and holes the minority carriers. These semiconductors are therefore known as N-type semiconductors. I have told you N is taken for granted as negative. So if N is more, then there should be, means if negative is more, then there should be more number of electrons. This should be remembered. Then what are P type of semiconductor? So now here we can say P means positive. So N means if negative, and if N means electrons, more availability of electrons, then P means positive and it means more availability of holes. Okay, so this is obtained when we dope trivalent impurity like aluminum, boron, indium, etc. into silicon or germanium. So this trivalent impurity will form three covalent bonds with the neighboring silicon or germanium atom, while the last neighbor will not have any bonding with the impurity. When the impurity tries to attract an additional electron from the surroundings, it will generate a hole at that place. If some other electrons comes to make a bond or with this remaining electron, then at that place of that electron there will be formation of hole. This hole itself is not stable, but uh, will undergo annihilation with electrons coming from the neighboring silicon or germanium atom. This process continues over the hole. Okay, so lattice, hence the hole is delocalized over the whole lattice and hence is available for electrical conduction. These holes are in addition to the intrinsically generated hole due to thermal excitation of the electrons in silicon or germanium atoms. Hence, the holes are in excess to electrons in such semiconductors, and these are called p-type semiconductor, and the impurities are called acceptor impurities, and the previous impurity is called as donor impurities because it gives the electron and it accepts it. Okay, so it is acceptor and the n-type was donor. Okay, so that's all about today's topic. So once again we will revise what we have seen. We have seen the classification of metals, conductor and semiconductor on the basis of their conductivity, then on the basis of their energy band gaps, and then we have seen what are semiconductors particularly we have seen, then what are intrinsic semiconductor, what are extrinsic semiconductor, what are p-type semiconductor, and what are n-type semiconductors. So I think you all uh, will be satisfied with this video. So if you like, please hit a like, and for any query you can ask me in the comment box. Okay, so thank you everyone for attending this lecture, and we are so close to end up our bridge course. So we have successfully completed 4 lectures of our bridge course, and tomorrow it will be the last lecture of our bridge course. I hope you all have found it very nice or very informative. Let me know your comments in the comment section. Thank you everyone once again.